Now begins the recitation of the Aletheon, the divine avataric self-revelation of His divine presence. Avatar Adida Samraj. This is the Western prohibition against higher knowledge and realization versus the Eastern advocacy of higher knowledge and realization. In Western or Occidental literature, mythology, and religious legends, stories, and doctrines, there is a characteristic and persistent tendency to associate a negative connotation or result with the quest for higher knowledge, and, altogether, with the process of esoteric initiation, esoteric knowledge, and esoteric realization. In the traditional Western or Occidental literatures, there is characteristically a penalty for those who approach the divine too closely, or who even seek to realize oneness with the divine. Indeed, the tendency to confine human existence and human potential to the mundane, the material, the physical, the social, and all that is merely exoteric is the principal characteristic of the Western mind. All of Western culture, all of Western religion, and all that characterizes the Western or the Westernizing and the modern or the modernizing influence and tendency. In the ancient Jewish story of the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve are penalized for taking the fruit of the tree that would give them the unique knowledge that would put them on a par with God. In the myths of the ancient Greeks, Icarus and Prometheus are punished for getting too close to the sun and to fire. And when Bellerophon rides his winged horse, Pegasus, up to the dwelling place of the gods, he is thrown down because he presumed he could attain the status of the gods. Likewise, Jesus of Galilee is, according to tradition, said to have been crucified for claiming oneness with the divine. As these famous examples, along with many other examples indicate, the traditions of the West, or traditions that otherwise characterize what can be identified as the Western or Occidental mentality, are typically associated with the prohibition against higher and altogether esoteric knowledge and realization. Therefore, there is a basic presumption in the traditional West and in the characteristically Western mind that one must neither own too much nor know too much. But, coincidentally, the traditional West and the characteristically Western mind is possessed by a persistent fascination with owning and knowing, and even a kind of lust to own everything and to know all. In the characteristically Eastern or Oriental traditions, the unique or defining characteristic is the opposite of the unique or defining characteristic of the Western or Occidental traditions. Therefore, in the typical Eastern or characteristically Oriental traditions, the stories, the myths, and the religious legends and doctrines are unambiguous about the praising, the glorifying, the seeking, and the attaining of higher and altogether esoteric knowledge and realization. The characteristic tendency and ambivalence of the Western mind show itself not only in literature, mythology, and religion, but also in the basic Western and characteristically modern inclination toward materialism, including scientific and political materialism, which is an enterprise of conventional knowledge and of worldly power that dogmatically eschew and systematically excludes all that is esoteric, or all that is metaphysical, or spiritual, or transcendental, or divine. Therefore, the West and all that is characteristically modern is characterized by ambivalence and even suppressiveness relative to higher and altogether esoteric knowledge and realization, and otherwise by a clear preference for exoteric and materialistic knowledge. It can even be said that the Western culture and all of Westernized or modern civilization is founded not only on materialism, but on an actual and persistent and gravely limiting fear of higher and altogether esoteric knowledge and realization. By contrast, characteristically and traditionally Eastern, or typically Oriental culture and civilization is associated with a positive and most profound orientation toward higher and altogether esoteric knowledge and realization. Also, the typically Eastern and typically Oriental mind and orientation is characterized by far less interest in or attachment to material things than is otherwise seen in the West and altogether in the modern or westernized world. In short, the West, in and of itself, is esophobic, or inherently afraid of what transcends the conventionally known or knowable, whereas the East, in and of itself, is esophilic, or inherently self-identified with all that is of a higher or otherwise transcendental nature. Therefore, the outgrowing of the now universalized Western esophobic tendency and its ambivalence, its materialistic revulsion, and its suppressiveness relative to the esophilic and not merely Eastern, but really spiritual, transcendental, and self-evidently divine process of self-realizing the self-nature, self-condition, and self-state of reality itself is the principal necessity for even all of humankind in this late or westernized time and in this dark or modern epoch. Here ends the recitation of the Aletheon. Da, da, da.